Well, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is where you are at the moment. Welcome to Oberg's Backyard Woodworking. It's a little strange, but let's give it a shot. We're going to look at a sign project today. Some of it is machining with a router. Some of it is carving. So let's get started. This is a sign that I made for a friend some time ago. It's just kind of a gag. It hangs outside their house. Baka is the nickname that these grandkids call their grandparents. So they asked me to make them a B&B sign. They wanted to add to that a sign that either says vacancy or no vacancy. And that vacancy, no vacancy sign is what we're going to work on today. First, I'm going to take a router and carve these letters. You can see that the letters have been printed on a computer and just glued onto the surface of the piece of wood. That's very helpful because it takes care of the style of the font. It takes care of the spacing and alignment of the letters. None of that has to be arranged by hand. To carve it, I'm going to use this V-shaped router bit. You can see the point on it right there. And it's going to do the vast majority of the work much more quickly than if I was going to carve it completely from beginning to end. So let's get everything clamped down and we'll begin. This is where you'll be watching from, and when I actually do the carving, I'm going to speed things up a little bit so it doesn't take too terribly long. Okay, now you're at my dining room table. The sign that we did outside has been carved with the router, and I'm going to take some time right now to carve the details with my carving tools. I'll let you take a look at that in 1 second. A little awkward to turn the camera and to speak. So we're going to use a variety of carving tools, and I'll show you those right now. Here's a whole set of carving tools. I'm going to wind up using a veining tool, which is a V-shaped gouge. You can see that sharp 45-degree V. I'm definitely going to be using a nice flat gouge. Here is a 12mm number 5. There's just a small amount of curve to that blade. Here's an 8mm number 5. Here's a 12mm number 2. This one's much more flat in its cutting edge. So we'll be using those and a kind of a straightforward carving knife to create the detail. The corners of the letters were definitely square when it was printed on the computer, but now that it's been cut with the router, this is round, obviously because the router bit was spinning around in a circle. So we're going to clean all these up and get rid of all this fuzz. We're going to get rid of the paper, and then we're going to come back and create all of these nice crisp square corners that the letters were supposed to have from the beginning. So you can see I have this clamped down now, and I'm going to begin with a carving knife to create in these corners. And where the router cut all along these edges, the paper is kind of curled up and it makes this rough fuzzy edge. So I have scraped all of that excess paper off of there because it makes it difficult to see the exact place where the corner is supposed to be. And I'm going to make a deep cut at this corner and at this corner. Because I use a V-shaped router bit, every one of these grooves is a distinct V shape, and the end of that path should also have a very distinct V shape, but it doesn't right now. It has a round end. So I made those deep cuts to stop the cells from splitting once I get to that corner. And it's relatively simple to take the carving knife and clean that up and make a nice V-shaped end to that portion of the letter. Okay, so that one is close. It's not quite finished yet, but that's kind of how that should be. So now I'm going to work on all the rest of these corners all around the entire thing. In some of the places, like the curved shape of the C right here, needs a little bit of cleaning up, and I can use a curved tool. The gouges have a curve built into them. So I would choose a gouge that matches the curvature of the letter so I can go ahead and clean that up and make that a nice smooth shape if I didn't quite follow the outline of the letter perfectly when I was using the router. Visibility is an issue when you're using the router, so sometimes your lines aren't perfectly straight. So this is my opportunity to clean them up and make them look nice. All right, so we're going to speed things up a little bit as I carve this so that you're not just sitting for a really long time watching me chip away at this. All right, so I sped things up a little bit, and as you can tell, I added a little bit of light so it was easier to see. But you can see how every one of these corners now has a very prominent V shape at the end. The sides of the grooves that sometimes still show a little bit of wave from where the router work was done, and I will go back and clean that up as well. But for the most part, the carving on this side of the sign is all done. What I can do now is go back and sand off all of this paper, and that will give me a better idea of exactly what I have. Sometimes the image on the paper makes it difficult to see exactly what you've done with your carving tools. So I'm going to get rid of this paper now, and then we'll think about placing some color inside the letters.